Hi, and welcome back to another video where today, me, Mr. Prehistoric, is going to be doing some speculation about what some of the new dinosaurs in the upcoming DLCs for Jurassic World Evolution 2 could be. Now, I'm going to be talking about all of the dinosaurs that I think will be coming up in general and that I want to be in the DLCs, and not focusing on specific DLCs that they could release. So I'm not just going to be going through all of the dinosaurs from the Triassic, any of that stuff, because if they really wanted to, I reckon they'd just release a non-avian dinosaur DLC and call it that. Like, I feel like they can just make any connection they want to for these DLCs, so I'm not going to be going off any of that, basically. I've just got a list of dinosaurs I want to see in the future for the game, and yeah, I'm just going to share them with you and explain why I think they'd be a really good option to have in the game. So, we're going to start off with the land dinosaur, or I'll say land dinosaurs, the only dinosaurs that are on land in the game. So, first we're going to start off with one, again, I've been very open about wanting in the game, and that is the Irritator. I've included this in a few of my previous roster speculations before, but this is really one I do want to see in the game at some point. I am a huge fan of the Irritator, and I think it would be a really nice in-between, like the full crocodilian baryonyx. Like, it's basically just a crocodile with long back legs. That's the way the Fallen Kingdom people designed it. And the Suchomimus, it could be an in-between of those, where it's slightly more stocky than the Suchomimus is, more like the baryonyx, but it has the smoother skin and the more long face, essentially, like the Suchomimus. And it could also have a bit of a sail on it as well, which would be really nice, although Evolution does seem to be very against adding sails to things that already have sails, so whether they'd do that or not is like a bit questionable. But again, that just would be a really nice dinosaur to have, and I reckon they could just make it a really interesting thing to put in your parks. The next one, again, one I've wanted in the game for a really long time now, and I'm very confident will be in the game at some point. That is the Concavenator. Concavenator did make a small appearance in Fallen Kingdom as a taxidermy in the background along with the Dimorphodon, which again is rumoured to be appearing in Dominion, so I'm not going to mention that here. But yeah, the Concavenator is just a dinosaur I've really liked for a long time. It's obviously from England, which is, you know, where I'm from, so I want it to be in the game, even though we've already got pretty good representation over there in the Frontier Studios. You know, they're an English company, so they're going to include English games. But yeah, it's just a really nice dinosaur. I like it, and I really think like they could do some really cool patterning stuff, especially with the sail on the back. That could be really interesting as well. And yeah, it's just a good one. Now, I'm going to get all of the carnivores out of the way first, because I've got a couple more herbivores after this. Next one is the Gualong. Gualong would be a really unique addition to the small carnivores, because at the moment we essentially have very little variation within the small carnivores, because we have the Troodon and Coelophysis, which are incredibly similar, and like from a distance you actually probably won't be able to tell which one is which. Then you have the Velociraptor and Herasaurus, which did used to have some variation, but because of the recent pack hunting that has been added to the Herasaurus for some reason, the Herasaurus is now just a slightly different shaped Velociraptor. But then we do have the Compsognathus, which you can't see anyway because it's shorter than the grass. And then you have the Dilophosaurus, which is unique. And again, the Gualong is a dinosaur like the Dilophosaurus, where because of its unique head shape, it could really have some interesting stuff. Like maybe if they added a couple, dewlaps, like the little skin flaps and stuff, make it look a bit more interesting, add some really piercing colour to it in the patterns. It could be a really interesting dinosaur, and it would be quite a cool one, again, just to have in your parks. Like, a lot of these are dinosaurs I personally would like to have in my parks. And then moving on to like the herbivores, where I've got 3 of these. One of them is the Plateosaurus, or Plateosaurus, however you want to pronounce it, which is a very interesting dinosaur from the Triassic, one of the earliest dinosaurs, I believe, and it is really unique. It is, I think, Protosauropod, I believe. Again, that's probably made up, but it's related to them, I think, in some way. And it is really interesting. It's got like a long neck, but I don't know, the whole thing about it is really bizarre. It's really not like any other dinosaur that I can think of, which I think would make it a perfect addition to the game. So really, every time they add a dinosaur that is completely new and something different that we haven't seen before, it ends up being a fan favourite. Like they added the Iguanodon, which is something we hadn't seen before. It had the whole like eating animation with its hands, and while it still was a technically like a hadrosaur and was very similar size and body shape, They really managed to make it feel different. And I think Plateosaurus will be another one of those where it would manage to differentiate itself and make it a really unique creature to have in your exhibits. Next one is the Protoceratops. Again, one that would be really interesting to see, as it would be our first small ceratopsid. And Protoceratops is a really famous and popular dinosaur that I've loved since I was little. I remember having toys of it and all that stuff. And it's just surprised me that it's just never been added into the game. It's not even because it's too small, because, you know, they've added the Concavenator. And I think it would be really cool to, like, now that we have the Minmi, to have a similarly sized ceratopsid as well, to sort of, you know, we have the Ankylosaurus, and then we have, like, going down in size and all the size variations now. And I think, like, continuing that, we could have the Protoceratops at the bottom of the ceratopsid scale, looking very, very cute in our parks. The last herbivore on my list anyway, is the Saltasaurus. The Saltasaurus, at first glance, does just seem like a basic sauropod. However, it is very often depicted with almost armoured and bony plating down its back. And now, if they did want to follow this very, like, popular conception of a dinosaur, how accurate it is, I don't know. I haven't done too much research into it. I'm not a huge paleontology nerd, so sorry if I do get stuff wrong in my videos. I do try and keep up to it to a solid level, though. Yeah, but, like, with the plating on its back, it would be a really nice opportunity to finally not get, like, I don't know, it's just finally get a sauropod with this plating, because a lot of sauropods are depicted with having spines and platings and dewlaps and stuff, and it would be really nice to finally get one that does have this plating on its back, and I just think it would look quite cool. Now, I'm going to move on to my aquatic reptiles. I do want to say that with aquatic reptiles and flying reptiles, it's really hard to find variation between them. I know that's like a strange thing, but once you add a certain amount of plesiosaurs into the game with, like, the long necks and stuff, there's no more, and then once you've added enough mosasaurs, other than that, there's not much variation. There obviously is more if they wanted to move into, if they did add aquatic herbivore feeders, then that opens up the realm of one of the creatures on my list, the Archelon, which I think would be really cool. If they decided to add, like, a kelp feeder or something, that could, like, introduce some new variation. But if they're going to keep it as it is with just the fish and shark feeder, they're really going to start running out of creatures to add, I think. Not because there's, like, a lack of them, just because a lot of them look very similar and it would be hard to differentiate them, although I do think there are ways to do it. One of these would be the Prognathodon, which will be on screen now, as all of these has been. But the Prognathodon, I think, is, while at first glance it does look quite similar to the Tylosaurus and Mosasaurus we have in the game, it is a lot stockier and shorter and feels a lot chunkier, and I think they could play into that, because they do seem to really be pushing the boat out and trying to make sure that these aquatic reptiles feel different, as has been proven with the three plesiosaurs, the Plesiosaurus, the Elasmosaurus, and the Atombosaurus, all of which have very similar body shapes, yet have all gone down very different styles. The Prognathodon I could see as an extension of this, although hopefully they don't do something like with the Elasmosaurus or Tylosaurus, not to that extreme. The last one on my aquatic reptile, since I've already mentioned the Archelon, which is the turtle obviously, is the Dakosaurus. Dakosaurus is one I just quite like anyway. It's a favourite of mine, like just the carnivorous like type of head it has, and just like the size is quite small, so that we haven't really seen a small like mosasaur type creature. We have the Coronosaurus and that sort of thing, but that's not too small. But yeah, I like it, really. That's all I really want it in the game for. And that's the last of it for the aquatic reptiles. It isn't like an extensive list of every single dinosaur I think will be on this in the DLCs. These are just ones I want to be in the DLCs, just to clarify. So, moving on to the flying reptiles. Some of these might be a bit obscure, because, you know, flying reptiles, once you get past the Dimorphodon and Tranodon and like the Quetzalcoatlus, a lot of it does sort of fall out of the public eye a bit. So I have had to do a bit of digging to find some ones that I would like to add, because I genuinely don't have that big of a list of aquatic reptiles in my head. Or not aquatic, sorry, aviary reptiles in my head. So I had to go looking for these. So one of these is the Nyctosaurus. The Nyctosaurus is a really interesting one, and does have a couple different ways of being depicted. One of which is without the sail that we see here, and one of which is obviously with the sail. Either way, it's a really unique and interesting looking like flying reptile. And what makes it even more unique is it's closer to the size of a Dimorphodon than to an actual Pteranodon. And it's just really bizarre how the sail is massively out of proportion to the rest of the body. And if there's no sail at all, which some people do think there isn't, then it's just a really weird looking two prongs coming out of his head, which still would be really interesting to see. So, then moving on to the Thalasodromeus, I hope I've pronounced that right. But again, this is a very interesting one. It still follows a very similar body shape and pattern to like the Pteranodon and the one I've just mentioned, and like a lot on the Pterodactylus and stuff. Very similar body plan, but again, the main thing that's going to differentiate a lot of these Pteranodons, Pterosaurs, is going to be the sail shape. And again, this one does have quite a unique sail shape, and I do think it's quite interesting looking, especially with like the thicker beak. I think they could, again, with all of the pterosaurs, they could do some really interesting colouring, and this is no exception. Then the next one is the Rhamphorynchus. Again, one that has been wanted for so long since the game was announced, and a lot of people were really surprised that the last revealed flying reptile wasn't the Rhamphorynchus. So I think just with the amount of outcry for it to be in the game, it has to be added at some point, and it'll just be a really nice, small flying aviary reptile. And if they're going to add the Compsognathus, again, nothing else is out of limits in my mind. So, yeah, that has been this video, I do believe. So, yeah, thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed, please remember to like and subscribe. It really does help me out. And go check out my Discord in the description below. Some really great people over there, and I'm sure you'll love it. So, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.